You guys ever find yourself sitting in the middle of a natural disaster, an active hurricane? She's still blowing through, and I'm on my way to go get a new car. That's questionable. All right, guys, it's raining, so we're not going to do too much outside, but welcome to the shop. I'm Jared, and this is the Questionable Garage, and we're off to make a questionable vehicle purchase. We're doing this on their phone. It was kind of seat of the pants. I don't have power at the house, so I came out to the shop to do some work, ran out of parts, and I had a friend that's been bugging me about that particular Ford right there. He really likes it, and I really like it. It's a car that my friend Henry and I flew out to Phoenix, Arizona, picked it up, drove it to El Paso, did some work on it, and then took it on a 1,000+ mile rally through snowstorms, through everything. We hit a Lamborghini Huracan with it, and then I drove it all the way back home and promptly blew the clutch up in it. But it's not practical. It's not. I'm trying to figure out where to look, Dwayne. If I look here, it's better, I think. But I've been trying to figure out what to do long term with it. It's not super practical in like working scenarios. It's a cool 4-door, it's 5-speed, did amazing on the rally, but it doesn't really have, I don't have a long-term need for it, and I hate it sitting. And this guy was like over the top, beside himself, excited about how cool it is. And I'm a big fan of making sure cars go where they belong. So the fact that it's soaking wet and that is the best time to ever sell a car, we're gonna go on a road trip to go pick something new up. So I'm going on a couple-hour drive in a storm for a car. I don't even know if it works. This is all about questionable today. So why on earth did I drive an hour and a half to look at an OBS truck? Well, you stopped by the shop and you did drive the Mercury and fell in love with it.
You made the horrible mistake. You handed me the keys. Here, move this for me if you could. Like, oh.
And I said, don't just move it, go around the block in it. That is a wonderful car that Henry and I had fantastic memories in. But it sits. It's not very practical for me.
You can't tow very well with that. Well, you can, but you know.
Not a lot of things. I currently do not have a good rig in the fleet. You rode with me in the Escalade.
I did.
And it looks good, and the dogs really like it.
But, you know, it bounces like a 1-ton. So you know what? You ought to have a 1-ton with that bounce.
With a big block in it. So this is a 92 K3500 camper special 5-speed. I'm not giving up the manual. It is a 5-speed.
Yep. The NV4500, which in this year had the better gear ratio. It's like 6.32 to 1 versus the later model, like 5 point something to 1. I forget the number, but it's 6 to 1 versus 5 to 1.
So for you young whippersnappers, we put this into low gear and we can ghost ride the whip.
Oh yeah, get out, go inside, have the wife make you a sandwich. It's great. You know, you look at this truck and you think Bob Seger, Locker Rock.
We'll do just a quick walk around. So similar to the Grand Marquis, the paint's not absolutely perfect. This was restored by a gentleman. It was featured on TFL trucks, and then it sat 2 years because when you needed to do big towing,
yeah, you know,
you have big trucks, so basically, we're both in the situation that we don't want to make the trade, but I don't have the dually anymore, and I need the pull trailers. He's got the need for a back seat.
Yes, and you know what? There's something else that you need that's in the back when you do your walk around. There's storage that was, shall you say, you know, less than factory.
So, looking around the paint now, what was cool in the original videos, the guy was honest. He put a lot of orange peel in the paint and he got to working on wet sanding it. And sometimes you go a little aggressive. And he's like, I accidentally hit primer. So I decided to live with a little bit of the orange peel. Maybe I do more with the paint. Maybe we just leave it as is. Minor surface rust on the frame. We'll look at it more a whole lot later. Something that was really cool, custom aftermarket, and that flips up. So if you have load level bars, if you've got chains, whatever, you can chuck them right in there for easy access, which is pretty cool. Nice big bed. You didn't tell me that plexi was broken. That's $20 off the trade value.
Well, see, now listen, today's the day that ends in Y, so we're just gonna ignore that today.
Completely stock exhaust, stock big block underneath the hood, 5-speed. Just, again, it is a 92. Some of the truck has a little bit of weathered and wear, but inside here, we're pretty much operational. But that's the trick, 5-speed. We're not losing a manual in the family. And then under there, we were trying to figure a few things out. Spider webs everywhere. It legitimately has been sitting a whole lot. There's wasps that have been coming in and out of there, but it's gonna be a remarkably reliable truck, hopefully.
It'll be fine.
We're gonna leave Grandma Marge, Grandma Dusty, whichever name he ultimately picks for it, yeah, powder keg. And why was it powder keg?
Well, because initially the engine was an unknown thing, so it could blow up now, it could blow up today, next week, or never. You never know. It could explode at any moment.
You never know with a powder keg. So we're gonna sign some paperwork, and our next scene is gonna be driving this bad boy a couple hours back home. Pretty good. Maybe 4-wheel drive. There we go. Rides unbelievably good. We got to go right to the gas station. Big block life. Again, the clutch is worn and the hydraulics are a little off. If you get into 5th gear and floor it a little bit, she slips. I know it's not a 2022 3500 Denali dually. It's like the exact opposite. Bare minimum options. Needs a little bit of love. It's a nice simple bench seat that's comfortable. Just an honest truck, and I really don't mind that. So we were just at that really nice time lapse. Things were going great. Now we're in the shop. He was very upfront and said the clutch slips. It's gonna need some attention. For him, it was mostly just slipping when he was in 5th gear. Well, for me, by the time I almost finished my drive home, I had no more forward motion. The good news is I absolutely loved the drive right before it went out, so we immediately went by our friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts, picked up a 10% upgrade clutch and a new flywheel, and we're gonna finish the episode putting that in because I really enjoy driving this truck. It is not a brand new Denali 3500 dually. Automatic transmission and 37 cup holders. It's manual transmission and it barely has 2 cup holders. But I don't know. I feel like this is like the end of the good trucks. Start getting to too much newer And the truck became less about being a truck and more about being a car, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. I really like how this thing looks. It drives really well, all things considered. You know, like, of course you got to qualify it and everything, but for being frank, like, it really does just drive really good. I haven't even put this thing on the lift. It's just, we quit going forward. So wrangled up a friend with a trailer and got it in the shop. I just learned, you know, if Daniel says it might need a clutch, it's probably sooner than later. I don't hold anything against him. I still feel like we did a pretty even trade, or I did slightly better in the trade. 5-speed Mercury Grand Marquis, awesome car. 5-speed OBS Chevy with a big block, even more awesome. Also, remarkably useful. This might be the first transmission where I finally break down and go out and buy a hoist as well, or a transmission jack. Alright, I need a light. That should be a lot easier than that. It's push and turn. What am I getting wrong here? There we go. Jeez. Well, it's our first look under this truck, and really, it kind of maybe looks rusty in pictures. There's a little bit in the wheel well, and it's just minor surface rust on the frame and exhaust components, but this thing looks really good. I'm feeling a little bit better about everything now. Again, my 2015 GMC I bought had worse surface rust than this thing does. So, pretty good. It is basically just stock under here. But being an NV4500, what we're gonna do, pull drive shafts, so we gotta completely pull the rear one. We can just unbolt the front one and kind of tie it off to the side. We will then pull our transfer case off. This is your transfer case if you're not familiar with four-wheel drive. Your output shot of your transmission, instead of going directly to the rear drive shaft, connects to a transfer case, which will have a gear reduction for low, and it has a chain, sometimes gears, that then come down to this lower section, connects to your front drive shaft, and that is what will give you four-wheel drive. But we've got to get a transfer case out. We're gonna pull, hopefully, just this mid cross member. I don't believe we need to remove the torsion bar cross member. This doesn't have traditional coil springs or leaf springs in the front. It has torsion springs, which they still do in the brand new trucks. They work incredibly well for heavy duty and ride comfort. It's kind of your all-in-wonder. You also get some simple ride height adjustment and preload, but that should be able to stay. It's basically a process of wiggling this out and rotating it sideways and then fishing it back forward. It's a process, but we can get that out with this cross member out of the way. Once that's gone, we then unbolt the transmission from the bell housing. You just have 4 bolts, then the transmission section will come off. Once that's on the table, we then get started on removing our bell housing, our clutch hydraulics, so we can get in there and see what all of that looks like. I believe we can get away without touching the exhaust, which would be nice to not risk any broken bolts. But none of that happens with me just talking. So we're gonna set up some cameras, and I'm gonna get started taking a whole lot of stuff apart. Truck drives great, it just, the clutch slips really bad. He warned us. I hoped I could have got a little more miles out of it. Oh well. right, so our clutch parts are all out on the table, and you can tell she was definitely getting a little hot. This has got a lot of waviness into it as well. This is a Vallejo clutch, which they've been a supplier forever. I did not initially see a date or anything on it. Think it's possibly been replaced, but the only thing that kind of makes me think maybe not is all of you mechanics are going to understand this. The really annoying clips and all the routing that makes removing and installing a part an absolute nightmare was all there. And I try to always put things back how they were, but let's be honest, sometimes there's a clip or two that won't get put in because the engineers thought they needed it, and us mechanics realized it just makes our life harder. It's hard to tell for sure. I'm not going to claim to know everything about OBS trucks to know if the Vallejo was the original manufacturer or not, but we do have a good bit of wear. There's some contamination, and it's also uneven wear on the clutch, which matches the problem on the flywheel. Good news is, I just bought a new one. It's weird working on stuff that parts are just, on the shelf, ready to buy at reasonable prices. I'm, a Snyder. I've got Mike in Hong Kong working really hard to help find parts for that. It's unusual just walking in and walking out with a part. But we're gonna go ahead and clean up the transfer case, clean up the transmission, all the parts that we're gonna reuse, and then we're gonna start putting it back together. Underneath, we're gonna put in a new rear main seal. And again, looking underneath, she's in really good shape. I'm pretty happy with everything. You can see how stock it is. Like it's been well cared for. Also, I'm glad I wasn't filming because I don't want you to do what I did. I'm just used to, like a TKX transmission, something like that. So I unbolted and began to remove that. That's the NV4500 cast iron case. It was 200 pounds. That was a surprise overhead lift. Thankfully, I wasn't hurt and it wasn't hurt, but we got cleaning to do. And talking doesn't get any cleaning done, so cue pressure washer montage. Give her a good healthy coating, brush it down, and then we'll hit it with some shop clean and see how it looks like. Probably need a little stiffer brush, but all I had was an interior brush. All right, shop cleaning some towels now. Yeah, this part's of the engine you don't actually see, but you work on. So it's just about making it a little more pleasant to get your hands back in there. Anyone who's worked on old stuff, or diesels, heck, it can be a 1-month-old diesel, or 2-day-old diesel. You know that feeling, but just being able to do most of your work and not just instantly be filthy. There's that smell. Man, do these things, old oil and old grime, has a very special smell. Kind of like back when I was doing Toyota sludge campaign rebuilds. Got to the point we had like a set of tools just to do those rebuilds, because somehow they just made the tools stink. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with it, I think. Next up is going to be our flywheel. Again, we got a new one. You can get them turned, but it's one of those things, as much heat checking and everything, by the time you pay to have it turned, you can just replace it, which is a bit of a bummer. But it's a good part and it's cheaper than turning. All right, cover your ears. One piece remains so much better. Doing a little blue Loctite. They came off dry, but it's definitely one of those things you should give a little Loctite to. Well, guys, it's the next morning and we're almost ready to run. Let me get you underneath and show you. Something really sad happened last night. Someone cut out my perfectly good pellet torque converter and just welded in a piece of stainless steel. But we have got the transmission back in. You saw, rather than just Herculesing it out, that's just short of 200 pounds. Don't do that. That was a bit of a surprise. It woke me up. But we got that out. We got it back in. You even saw I went as far as, torquing all of these bolts because I really like this truck. I want to keep it nice. We got new fluid in the transfer case. We are going to add our fluid to the transmission from the top through the shifter hole. It's a little bit easier than pumping it in through the side. Now, when it comes to an NV4500, some of you guys know this, fluid is very important for this transmission. It calls for a GL4. The problem is, if you go out to most stores, you'll see a GL4 and then an asterisk. And in the small print, it says not for synchronized applications. That's a synchronized transmission. GL5 can actually ruin the synchronizers in it, and you're going to be rebuilding it really soon if you put the wrong fluid in it. So, took a little bit, a lot of hoop jumping. It calls for 7585. Redline makes an MT85, but that's the wrong fluid. You have to go to a 7590, which is acceptable, and you get the Redline MT90. There are a couple other options for it. There is some factory fluid, I think, that they now re-offer. Make sure you put the right fluid in. Now, also fluid. We're gonna go down a little word picture for you guys, since you don't get smell-o-vision. I cracked open the bleeder on that transmission, the drain plug, to get the rest of the fluid out. I was hit with a smell that I didn't know fluid could make. Best way to describe it. All right, your local Parks and Rec is having a springtime food truck fair. In the far corner, there's 6 taco trucks. There's a porta potty next to those 6 taco trucks. They're serving really spicy tacos. That is a very used porta potty. It then is forgotten about until the fall food festival, and they're getting ready for it, and they realize, hey, we need to pump and clean this thing out. And the moment that poor, unsuspecting septic tank tech breaks the crust with his hose, that smell, sprinkled with just a little bit of the Motorcraft Ford Limited Slip additive, It was terrible, absolutely terrible. I honestly had a bunch get on a shirt and I threw it away. It wasn't worth risking it like tainting the washing machine. It was bad. Well, we're gonna have a good fluid in it. We're gonna have a running driving truck here really soon. I hope you appreciated that word picture, but I like this, and we are definitely keeping its good old name, Powder Keg. It's a good name. All right, well, if I look a little rough, the past 2 hours have been trying to bleed the clutch, and feels like it's finally bled. So we are gonna go for a drive, I hope. That was reverse, disengaged. The clutch doesn't slip anymore. Holy cow, gentle. I'm also used to it being at the very top, and it's very much in a normal release point now. Whoops. One thing that's immediately different was the shifter had a lot of vibration in it, and I can't remember I got a good enough picture. The throwout bearing was or not the throwout, the pilot bearing was destroyed on this. It was a needle bearing, and they switched to a bronze bushing style, which thankfully after polishing the input shaft it fit right on, no problem. And that horrible shake in the shifter was gone. We're not leaning into this clutch too hard. You know, we kind of joked a little bit, especially in try-hard, how we immediately were just like thrashing on the clutches with no brake in. I wonder if that guy's gonna stop. There you go, buddy. I had someone tell me something interesting before. Integrity is coming to a complete stop at a stop sign when there's no one around to see you do it. Good news, there are less vibrations in the drivetrain than when we started. That's a plus. Our flywheel's good, our clutch is good, pilot bearing's good. That small crack is not, again, it wasn't doing anything before. David, who we got this from, has towed many thousands of miles with it. I'm not hot rodding it. If anything, we might make some tweaks to make it more fuel efficient. That's not shaking anymore. It's running nice and smooth. There's that ever so slight more exhaust note, the tiniest more exhaust note from that catalytic converter thief. Powder Keg is a very useful truck for me right now. We've got lots of events to go to. Because this is such a work truck, I don't want it to be a screamy, shouty thing. I want it nice and quiet. Well, we are back from the drive, and it's a good truck. And I think you all will agree, it is a good, honest truck. This episode ended up, it was gonna be just a quick, fun one where we just swap some cars and talk about it, and instead we did minor major surgery on the second day of ownership of Powder Keg, our 92 K3500 camper special truck. I really like it. It is not a big fancy dually. It's not got every cruise control option. You got to drive it. I'm excited about it. Next episode with Powder Keg, we are going to try to make him look a little bit closer to how he used to look when he got parked up 2 years ago. That's some really good single stage paint. We are going to do a deep clean, get that engine bay looking really nice and fresh, and make them look a little prettier. Because, you know, 2 years of sitting around not doing anything, it makes anyone look pretty rough. Or working on NV4500 without a trans jack all by yourself makes me look pretty rough. But appreciate you guys, as always, hanging out with us as we do some silly things in the shop and end up with the exact same number of cars we started the episode with, but with something a little bit more useful for what we need. I'm Jared, reminding you guys to always make questionable choices, except for when it comes to removing an NV4500 by yourself. Don't do that. That's not questionable. It's stupid. I only survived because I'm built like an ox or some absurd large creature. We'll see ya.